Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Good evening, everybody. This is Angy Stewart from miainnerlight, and we are live on Kardec Radio. Today is Thursday. Right now, it's 9:03 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is our monthly program where we talk about this book, Heaven and Hell. And then we also talk a little bit about this book, What is Spiritism? This is like a smaller book that Kardec brought to us throughout the Spirit's teachings. So we have been studying this book, Heaven and Hell, is part of the Spiritist codification. And at this moment, we are studying chapter 2. And we are studying the part 2 of chapter 2 because this book is divided in part 1 and 2. Part 1 is all the theory to give people that don't understand about Spiritism to understand what it is, all kinds of important details. And part 2 is the mediumship messages, is the Spirit's messages that are brought to Kardec to help us. And the first portion of this chapter talks about the happy spirit. So Kardec is very smart that he starts with good, with the goodness, with the positiveness, with the message from this spirit who knew how to live well on earth. And when I say live well, it's because they were doing good. They were people incarnated that were doing good. So they knew that to receive good, you have to do good. So they were a little bit more evolved. As we started last month, when we talked about this chapter, we read many of the messages. And we saw that some people mention, but he was a wonderful man. Nobody has one little thing negative to talk about him. So you already see the level of the spirits. And talk about when they died, how they woke up in the other side. So we also understood that just because they were very good people, some of them had very painful deaths. Some of them had very problematic, long diseases. They were painful, but their awakening in the spiritual realm was kind of similar because they were all like they woke up. They kind of quickly understood what happened to them, and they were actually happy to have gotten rid of the physical body that was old, sick, and they had to go through so many things. So basically, this is the summary of what we have been doing, and we will continue tonight with it. So this is a very long chapter. There were a lot of spirits who brought messages. So we divided among our two friends that will be talking tonight, and they will give us little glimpses about each spirit. Not too many details because we don't have time, but they will give us glimpses who they were when they were on earth, and how they died and how they woke up. That's the most important thing. So let me just say hello to my friends. Hello, Sonia, Juan, I see River and Julio. Hi, how are you guys? Thank you for being here. If you have time, please send a message in our WhatsApp group and tell the people to join us. We only do this once a month, so it is important to all of us to listen, to participate, and to learn. So before I invite our friends here tonight, I just would like to invite all of you to do a quick prayer. If you have your water bottle, please put it next to you so you will receive your spiritual medication, and then we can connect with the enlightened spirits. God, our Mother and Father, thank you for bringing us here tonight to continue our spiritual evolution, to continue our studies, our improvement, learning more and more with the experience of our brothers and sisters who crossed over before us, helping us to understand a little bit of what happens in the other side, in the real side of the life, the spiritual side. And we ask the enlightened spirits that are here with us and our guardian angels to come close to us and help us to connect with them, help us to open up our minds, and to have like these ideas expanded. Maybe certain items that we couldn't understand, they will be clarified tonight. And we ask these good inspirations to be put upon our friends that will be talking tonight, and all our brothers and sisters who will be listening right now, or maybe later on during the recorded version. Inspire all of us to have these aha moments that we can understand even more than what we already know at this moment. Please stay with us, and so be it. Very good. Very good. Let's start. Hello, Ida. How are you? Nice to see you here with us. So let's bring my first guest. Hello, Teresa.
Oh, hello, Angie, and hello, the folks from MIA. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Teresa, just let us know where you're located because some of them don't know it.
Sure. I live in Vermont, and I've been studying Spiritism since 2015. Started with
Exactly.
Angie in New York City.
Exactly. We met in New York City. And I remember you used to tell me, no, but I come to Vermont, but I really like to come here to study. And I was like, wow, she comes all the way from Vermont to Manhattan. I'm like, I admire this spirit.
Since COVID, and now we have all this Zoom, but I think about that and I think, oh my God, so much time and effort, but I don't regret it. Beautiful learning.
No, it was great because if you haven't done it during COVID, you wouldn't have that connection. So
No,
during COVID, that we had to be all separate. Then you already had that connection, you had the understanding, and then you had Kardec Radio online to be
that's
able
right.
to even, learn more from your home. So that was a blessing. Thank you so much
For
for being
sure.
here. And we have Mark. Hey, Mark.
Hola, I'm still in Florida, Sunrise, a little bit north of Miami.
But where you moved from, Mark?
Oh, I came from California in November, drove my
E-
recreational vehicle across the country.
Exactly. So you were a Florida baby,
I'm
few months
almost Florida.
old,
Very true.
few months old. But Mark, the same way we met. Mark was always in California. We met online, and it was a blessing because he was studying also through Kardec Radio. So Kardec Radio helped so many people
Hmm.
Absolutely.
faraway locations to connect and to keep connected and to keep learning. So this is the very positive thing. So thank you, my friends, for being here tonight with us. So hello, all of you that are listening to us. Please ask your questions right in the comments. I will be reading, and Teresa, Mark, myself, we will be answering. So we will start with this book that I already mentioned. This is the book called Heaven and Hell, and it is from the Spiritist codification. And we have here Allan Kardec is the codifier. As I mentioned before, we are on chapter 2, and it is about happy spirits. So I don't want to take much longer because we have a lot of spirits to cover.
Yeah.
So just for you that have never heard of spiritism, I see some of you never heard of spiritism or are very, very new to it. So in this book, we are going to do what everybody says. Everybody says, a lot of people say, oh, but I have no idea what happened because no one ever returned from the dead to tell me what happened. So in this book, yes, a lot of spirits return from the dead to say how it is in the other side. So in this chapter, I mentioned a few minutes ago, we are going to be talking about the happy spirits, about the spirits that are morally elevated. So they were good people while they were living on earth. It doesn't mean that every single awakening will be the same, even for good spirits. But if you have an understanding, if there are good people here on earth, there are bad people here on earth, and they are waking, will be relatively connected to what they were living. So, very good. We are going to start with our friend Teresa, and she's going to start summarizing lots of her spirits, a little bit of each. And when she finishes, Mark will be summarizing his spirits, but we can all make comments and questions. And this is a conversation. Okay.
Right.
So feel all free to make comments, questions, and we can interrupt a little bit and clarify. Very
Okay.
good. So
Okay.
let's, Teresa.
Angie, so when I have 5 minutes left, give me a warning of some type, okay? So I stay on target. So I think this is beautiful. Angie already gave us a lot of understanding about the spirits. Mark and I are going to talk about happy spirits. What makes them happy? And when we read in the passage, which was the previous chapter, you guys probably read a couple months ago, I assume, it tells us that these spirits had an easier disengagement, their soul from their body, and they probably had less confusion. So these are certain things that happen during the passage, and to be to fall under this category of happy spirits, this is some of the criteria. Criteria, that sounds fancy, but some of the qualities that they experience. So their disengagement is a little bit quicker, and they have less of the confusion state. They wake up faster. So our first spirit was 6 deniers. That's the last name. He drowned. He was called forward in a meeting, and he tells them that when he awakened, it was pleasant, but he also says that he didn't have any faith when he died, although he was a morally upright man. And so he said there was a moment where he had to, expiate his indifference toward the Creator. He doesn't go into detail, but so we know there was some kind of review or, learning for him. But he says the things that worked in his favor was the good he had done while he was alive, and that he had accepted the hardness of life, harshness, the trials, with resignation. What does that mean? Is that it's consent through the heart, and it is accepting without rebelliousness or complaining. And I think another important thing he teaches us is that during the communication with him, he allows an unhappy spirit to interfere with the communication, and he says he does this, he allowed this so we could learn that other spirits will do this, and that we have wards, that he, being an upright, more elevated spirit, he was working with other spirits who were struggling. So he allowed this unhappy spirit to come through the communication so that this group could help that unhappy spirit. Then we move on to a Dr. Demure. And he, again, very charitable. He was a homeopathic doctor. And he was also a spiritist friend of Allan Kardec, a personal friend. Now, what's so interesting about this man is he dies on January 25th. They're able to talk to him the very next day. So we can understand that he is belonging to a very advanced order of spirits because of his refined intelligence and moral qualities. So this is, another, when we talk about criteria or qualities, this is what we're finding, people with high moral standing. So what we know about this man is that he was very charitable when he was alive. He continues to be charitable, and he demonstrates that because 15 days after he discarnates, he's already out doing service and helping incarnates with their healing. They talk about he helped a medium. She had a bad foot, and he helped with that healing. So here he is, 15 days later, he's doing all this service. And he says that he did experience a lethargy as he was discarnating, but he was able to keep his mind active, and so he wasn't completely in that state of confusion. So it's another indicator he's an elevated spirit. He also shares with the group that he's no longer old and he's not suffering. He had a very, an illness where he suffered a great deal, physical illness. And one thing he points out is the spiritual realm is not foreign to him. He felt at home immediately when he was there. He feels like he had been there before. Now, what's interesting, and because he is a personal friend of Allan Kardec's, he reminds Allan Kardec that, heaven helps those who help themselves. So he tells Allan Kardec, you need to follow the advice of the good spirits, because at this point, Allan Kardec is working very hard to finish the codification, all the books of Spiritism. And his health was not good. So he tells him, stop burning coal because it releases harmful gases that makes it difficult for him to breathe. At that time, we need to remember in the 1800s, that's how they were heating, with coal. Yes. And there's a point where Allan Kardec gets into an accident, and this spirit, Demir, actually works with the spirit of truth to divert this accident, because Kardec would have been killed. And he reminds Kardec, he says, you need to take care of yourself. He's talking to him from the spiritual realm. He says, because an early death will be considered an intentional suicide due to excessive work. So he's like, you need to take care of yourself. And then some people say to Kardec, well, why do we want to go there if you can't rest? I mean, I'm hoping to rest and, rest in peace, right, after we die. And so Kardec points out the benefits, or this spirit points out the benefits of ongoing work, because he says it frees us from worries. We can travel in space by the speed of thought without tiring. And he also says that spirits will become bored with being idle and selfish, that it satisfies the spirit to work, and it helps us to develop. So this Dr. Demir, very elevated spirit. Then they move on to Widow Foulon.
Let me just read the comment that Juan made about the first spirit you were talking, the 16 years. So it makes an interesting comment. 16 years makes an interesting comment that we can be here in a tough situation that can be a mission and not the result of expiation or karma. Yes, because we always think when we are living a tough situation or when our death is painful, because some deaths are not automatic. They are long processes of the painful diseases. And we think, oh, it must be a tough karma, a tough problem that this person is doing a cleansing. But it could be like you mentioned here, could be a mission that this spirit decided or accepted to go through it to help us to understand how is this process of purification, for example.
Yeah.
Very good, Teresa. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I think too, at that time, they asked about his daughter who had discarnated, and he tells them she's actually incarnated on the earth for a mission. So, okay. So Widow Foulon, thank you, Juan. Thank you for making that statement. So Widow Fulan was a woman who had a very hard life, a lot of sacrifices, harsh trials from early on, youth. She became blind, so very hard life. But here again, we see someone who persevered with courage and resignation. She didn't complain and whine. She kind of made the best of her situation. She was very aware of fulfilling her mission as a wife and a mother. And she too, she dies on February 3rd, and they're able to talk to her 3 days later. So we can understand she's not in this confusion, because this confusion state can last for years. Okay, so it, when we talk about these spirits, being awake 8 hours later or a day or two, this is pretty advanced.
Yes.
And she says she didn't really have much confusion. And she was, again, personal friends with the Kardecs. And so she tells Mrs. Kardec that we really need to believe that the dead are happier than the living, because she says, if we mourn the dead, it is to doubt Spiritism, right? It's to say there's no life, or that they're dead and gone forever and there's nothingness. And she reminds us that, it is not, we are not meant to be idle, that we continue doing this service, because we bring good points to the table. And she says this is an expression of God's justice, that we are allowed to express our free will. Now, she also brings up this accident about Kardec when she talks to Allan Kardec in her communication. She reminds him, because she's aware, she's in the spiritual realm, but she's aware of what happened, where he was in this accident and almost got killed. And she reminds him that he needs to be careful, because it's important that he finish the codification. And what's interesting about her death is when she awakes, she is received by friends she doesn't recognize, but they tell her, you no longer belong to the earth. And she's taken to a happy world. And remember, the world where we're living right now is one of trials and expiation. It's moving toward regeneration. We're not completely there, but we're on our way. And then the other beautiful thing she tells us is that we don't need to worry about, losing our loved ones. They're not lost. And also that love, charity, love, is the tie that binds souls beyond death. So we're always stay connected. And what Kardec points out is, with this spirit, she actually was closer to her family in death, because when she was alive, they lived far away. She couldn't visit them. And now she's discarnated. She's on a happy planet, but she is very much involved with her children's life as she's in the spiritual realm assisting them. So the next man is very interesting. He was a Russian physician, and he too respected for moral qualities and knowledge.
Was this one also from Kardec's Spiritist Society or no?
I believe so. I thought they all were. Maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but I thought they all were from the.
Yeah, no, this one I'm not sure. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but that's interesting.
Yeah. Let me. No. Well, I know. No, I think you're thinking of Bernardin.
Yes, I think the other one.
Yeah. Anyway, so this man, he was not. He says he wasn't frightened when he was dying because of his faith. And he said he too was greeted by friends, and mostly these friends were people he had helped on earth. Remember, he was a physician. So, and he says he too is on a higher planet, but he recognizes, and he wants us to know, it required many trials and many incarnations. So it wasn't like, he was a good man this life. So, no, that there's multiple lifetimes, very humble. And I think the important thing that he really gives to us is he says that, it's important for having friends, both in the incarnated world and the discarnated world, because he says, as we die, the friends on the earth weep for us. But as we are discarnated and we find ourselves in the spiritual realm, we're also greeted by friends there. So he encourages, we need to connect more with these spiritual friends. And he says that our attributes, this is why we want to work on raising our morality, because it acts as a counterweight to the evil that's still inside of us. And I think this is very beautiful. So it's like, you know, we have something we can do to change ourselves. And I love this, that, you know, there is a way of improving oneself. And he reminds us that forgiveness of offenses is a powerful mitigating force against evil. Very important. So the next one is Bernardin, strong, brave bear. Is, I don't know, maybe a nickname for him or something. But what's interesting about this is they received this communication in 1862. But what he's talking about is his incarnation in the 1400s. And I believe that this man was he was a male spirit at the time in the 1400s, and I believe he was a slave, because he talks about all kinds of injustices he faced, watching his daughter and his wife be raped. His sons were hauled off to war and then hanged for crimes they didn't commit. And the thing that touched me about this man is he had this beautiful prayer, and it was, "My God, give me strength to bear this weight without complaint." And I think that's a beautiful thing for us to, when we're to use and say when we're facing a harsh trial, to help us not complain, but bear the weight. And he just reminds us, whatever we're suffering or going through, the happiness that, if, you know, we endure this and we make the best of it, is so much better on the other side. So it gives us a lot of hope. And he wishes us courage, patience, and resignation. These are three big ones, you know, to navigate life. And what is so beautiful about this man is he talks about what he is now doing as his mission, and this was in 1862, in Spiritism. He was actually working to inspire good thoughts and neutralize suggestions by evil spirits. And now we have to see this man as very elevated, this spirit. He's not a man. And then very quickly, I think I'm making my time, is
Yes.
Paula. And this one is a strong one. So Countess Paula, and she is the one actually that she is, I believe that she's evoked or brought forward, or no, I guess that was the other guy, the Barondine. No, here it is. So she discarnated at age 36 in 1851, but they actually communicate with her in 1863, okay? Because one of her family members become a spiritist and so wants to connect with her. So at the time of that death in 1851, she was a countess. She had all the temporary attributes: beauty, youth, wealth, power, and health. She had it all. But she was the ideal model of virtues. She was always ready to forgive, mitigate evil. She never slandered. She was not condescending to the people who worked beneath her. And she did a lot to, you know, conserve her money so she could pass it on to the needy. The important thing about her is Kardec identifies the similarities between her, Countess Paula, and a spirit that is talked about in the Gospel, chapter 13, Don't Let the Right Hand Know What the Left Hand's Doing. And it's number 4, Hidden Misfortunes, where they talk about the spirit who was of wealth and power, but she would go at night into the streets dressed as a common person because she didn't want to offend people with her wealth or, you know, make them feel less than. And she would go and help the needy. So she was someone, she didn't wait for people to come asking her for alms or for help. She went looking for them. And that's the beautiful thing about her. Now, she's
the one that brought her daughter with her to teach
yes,
her how
yes,
to do. Yes.
right. And the daughter wants to help and wants to give and she says, but you don't have anything to give. But what she teaches the daughter is that we can give of ourselves. You don't have to have materials, but to teach and to help where you're needed. And so that's a beautiful lesson.
Beautiful, very beautiful.
So she is still, she's in a happy world. And what is so interesting about her is she's very humble, and she's willing to say, hey, listen, I went through a lot of lifetimes to get here. It's not like I was just, Miss Woo Woo or whatever, and I was just granted to be there. No, she had her times of trials. And she warns us that the hardest trial is that of wealth and material well-being. She says, so don't ask for it before you're ready. Okay. Because when we're in the spirit realm, we're like, oh yeah, make me blind, make me poor. And then we get on earth and we're like, we don't know.
Yes, like please. Yes.
So she, and here's the thing. Here she is in 1863 communicating, and she's telling them at this gathering, she said, earth is their main concern in the spiritual realm because the earth must be regenerated in a certain time. So she has a mission at that time in 1863 to help the earth regenerate. Wow, right? Here we are, more than 100 years later. And
that's amazing.
I think I covered it, Angie.
No, you did. You did an amazing job.
I stepped through it, but it's very, and I want to thank you because I feel like I had a personal interview with these spirits. I mean, they really touched my heart and, really gave me the ideas, that idea about, God help me bear this weight with courage. I've used that. And I think,
one thing that you said, it's very important to, especially to the people that are very new to spiritism. It's not that in one life you are a good person, that you're going to wake up in this paradise or in this very, very good spiritual situation, moving away from earth and going to a happy planet. But it's through many, many, many reincarnations. So sometimes people say, oh, yeah, I don't need to reincarnate on earth anymore because I already had 20 lives. And I'm like, 20 lives? And like, do you think 20 lives? That's it? Now you're a pure spirit? Oh, yeah, someone said 20 is the number. I'm like, what around 2,000? How many? 20,000. We don't know how many times we need to reincarnate. And you need to know also that in the past, people died really quickly. And any reincarnation is a reincarnation. Even if you were aborted or if you died 1 year old, this is one reincarnation. Anyway, very, very good. Thank you so much, Teresa. We just want to give Mark time to go through his spirits too. So Mark is going to start talking about, well, I don't know if Mark is going to talk one by one or if you want to take special ones, whatever you think is better.
Like Teresa, the beauty of this is the exercise of preparing is very important to me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like I got to know these spirits, like I had a sit-down interview with each one. So the first one was titled In Bordeaux. And this one's kind of interesting because it's a very respectful interchange between two discarnated spirits. One is very elevated, who has just discarnated, and the other one is an elevated spirit that has been there for a while. And so they have this conversation. And the one who has just discarnated said his process was very quick. He avoided all confusion because he had very good knowledge of the process of what was going to happen when his body functions ended. And he aligns that knowledge to the fact that for all humans, there's no such thing as not having doubt. We can believe fully in all the principles of Spiritism, but there's some nagging doubts about how it really works and what really happens, and so on. So no matter the depth of our knowledge, that doubt is always present. However, Those who profess Spiritism but do not live it will not have as easy enough time. In other words, if all you're doing is educating others on Spiritist principles, but you don't live them yourself, your knowledge is almost worthless. On the other hand, even if you don't educate others and you are simply on the receiving end of education, it is imperative that you live the principles on a daily basis. That is the crux of having an easier time in transition. Continually practicing the Spiritist life minimizes the transitional challenge. And here was the specifics, including during the errant state. Now, the errant state is right after discarnation, when every spirit reviews the life just led, the good and maybe the not so good. And there's this process, almost like a purgatory, and it's called the errant state. And it may not last very long, every unique situation. It depends on a variety of different things. But this is the conversation that took place between these two spirits and was then communicated to the living. The second is Antoine Cousteau. Now, this one's really interesting. He was buried in a graveside cemetery on September 12th, 1983, but he died about 4 days beforehand. And 3 days before that graveside ceremony, they actually dug his grave. And at the conclusion of the hole being dug, there was a large group present to hear his spirit clearly speak of the glories of the afterlife. He gave amazing details. Remember, this is 3 days before the graveside ceremony.
My God.
And all those in attendance were stunned to hear these details. And it changed the entire content of the graveside ceremony. Life was portrayed as completely enjoyable, almost magical in nature. And people became stimulated at the opportunity to pass to the other side. This spirit also came back multiple times at Spiritist meetings and other places to continually extol the virtues of the spirit world and the premise that death is life. Okay.
It's almost like exciting to die.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the third one is titled...
Sorry to interrupt, Mark. The thing is, like, we have to understand, we are all talking about the elevated spirits that they had gone through trials and expiations on their own, maybe in other lifetimes. This was the last lifetime before we get this interview of happiness. So in next chapters, we will be going through the medium level spirits, the lower level spirits, and then we will understand this awakening is very different. That's why it's so good for us to study, that we understand the differences and we start questioning, where am I?
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
Okay, the next one is Miss Emma, and her name is Emma Livy. She died in 1863, about 8 months after suffering terrible burns. She was in a rehearsal at the French Opera when her costume caught fire from a lantern. And for 8 months, she was in a hospital, dying.
Wow.
Shortly after her death, her spirit appeared at a meeting of the Parisian Spiritist Society. And Emma described, through a medium, her burned body. She described it in advance of, she knew during this 8-month period that when she dies, all the pain will end. She was suffering during that 8-month period in the hospital. But she knew that once she died, her suffering would end. And so her death was not difficult for her at all. She continually prayed. She was almost comatose the entire time, but her transition was very quick. And she realized the need to come back and educate the spiritists that suffering is an essential part of everyone's spiritual journey. And that once the suffering ends, once the body stops functioning, there is joy, there is relief, there is understanding. The next spirit was Dr. Vignal, and he was an active member of, also an active member of the Parisian Spiritist Society. And right after he died, a somnambulist was a special kind of medium was given testimony by Dr. Vignal about the ability to converse from the spirit world. And on multiple occasions, this spirit connected with a friend and mediums to communicate, again, the wonders of the spirit world in order to give hope to others not to fear the transition, not to fear dying. And what I found very special about Dr. Vignal is he acknowledges the role of his spirit mentor and protector spirit, Pascal,
Wow.
who would not allow him to only come back to speak to the Parisian Spiritist Society. Pascal kept assigning him tasks for other spirits as well.
Wow. Imagine the level of the spirit when your spiritual protector is Pascal.
I know, that's amazing.
Wow.
Okay, the next one is Victor Leblouf. Now, this is a sad story. This is a 20-year-old young man who died prematurely, obviously. He was a very good person. He worked as a wharf laborer, but he led a very conservative life, did not party or drink, came home and cared for his mother. Now, his mother knew he had been sick. And on the day before his death, his mother had a dream of her son passing. And the dream put her at ease because she knew about the glorious joy that he would experience. Even though she was going to be lonely, she acknowledged that his death was a necessity. And sure enough, after his death, his spirit materialized to communicate the need for his suffering up until the day he passed, and the need for his mother to continue suffering of his absence, because there is happiness that will await her when it's her time. He speaks of the need for benevolence, charity for neighbors more than yourself, and the need for high moral qualities. And these were two things that his mother paid particular attention to. The next spirit was Mrs. Anais Gourdon, a young woman with high moral character who died in 1860. Now, she had an interesting life because she married into a mining family. Here she is surrounded by ruffians, men who are crass. But in her death, she came back through a medium and communicated of her happiness in the spirit world, and that she wished her family would stop saddening her with their continued mourning. That's a comment we've heard multiple times from spirits, that we should not waste our time mourning those who have passed on. We should give joy to the fact that they are now in a much different world, and we will join them eventually. She realized, Mrs. Gordon,
sorry to interrupt,
that's okay,
Mark, but this is a very interesting comment, because most of us don't understand that. We love the people and we want the people with us, even in certain situations that we know that that person is beyond becoming healthy again, reach to a point that it's not possible. But we keep hoping for a miracle. This person is going to come back to be with us. But if we could liberate the thought and understand that we are being selfish because this person is going through so much pain, it is better to really to pray that the best for this person is going to happen. And maybe the best is really dying, because then they are free of a sick body and they can have a better awakening without all the pain they have to go through. So very, very good.
One other one other interesting comment by this spirit is, after discarnation in the spirit world, she reflected on her life and she realized that she was placed in this environment with a mining family and very harsh, hard times on a daily basis. But she was placed in this to soften the men's personalities in order for them to advance. And so if you can imagine these ruffian, gruff men facing this woman every day and softening in their interactions with her in order for them to progress. And the last spirit was Marie Gontran. Again, a young person, a child who died at 19 years after a long illness with a lung disease. This boy possessed a rare intelligence and had a gentle, loving character. His death was painful for his parents, for they kind of blamed themselves for always getting him through his education. He was a very accomplished student, but they may have pushed him too hard. At least that's what they thought. Well, months after his death, through a friend, he appeared to convince his parents about the truth of Spiritism and its principles. And so he urged them to study everything that is Spiritism and accept the fact that they will eventually die and reunite with him in the spirit world, but only if they trust in God's goodness. They cannot have despair at his death. They must look forward to the reunion in the spirit world. Parents must know that their son is always with them, present in their lives, standing right behind them, being part of their conversations, giving them advice, and that they should not have any anxieties at that reality. And again, he cautioned them not to mourn those who have passed on, because you will reunite with friends and family when it's your turn. They were concerned with his pain during death, and he was clear to say, I have no pain at the time of death. The pain was in the preceding illness that led to death. Once my body gave out, I'm no longer in pain. And he also told the story to give his parents optimism that when he transitioned, he was met by his grandfather, who he loved very dearly when he was a young child, and other friends and family from the spirit world. So again, he gave his parents optimism in the face of despair.
Yes. Yes, going through all these examples, it gives us so much hope, the understanding that even if we are not this type of elevated spirits yet, we already understand that a majority of spirits, even from mediums who are not spiritists, they mention many times when they give communications we see on TVs that they say, oh, I was granted by my grandmother, oh, my best friend, or my aunt, or someone that loved us, usually are there to receive us, to help this transition to be smoother, to be easier. So when we believe, we spiritists, we don't believe, we understand, because for us it's much more solid. But for people that are not spiritists, but they have an idea that when we die, something continues, even if it's a little bit different than what we know, it is so much helpful. We have so much hope because the nothingness doesn't exist. We will wake up. It's almost like changing clothes. This clothes we are going to abandon, and we are going to receive a brand new one, shiny, new, without any pains, and life will go on. And as Teresa mentioned, will go on without boredom, and we will be working every day. Can you imagine? I just imagine. Oh my goodness! Every day will be a new excitement. Every day will be something new to do, a new place to go, something to learn, know how to improve myself, helping others. We already do this on earth, but at least most of the spiritists, they are always doing some type of charitable work. Other people, they never experience doing charity. Some people just write checks and they donate when it's Christmas time for some entities, but the real donation is of yourself, is putting our hands to help someone. And when we are in the spiritual realm, if we're not used to it, we will be learning how to do it. So it is an active death. Like we die to be working, but we will be actually happy to be working. So this is so powerful. Thank you so much, both of you. Let's just go through the last minutes to our next book. And this is What is Spiritism? We are just going to have a few minutes to read some of the information here, and then we can all share. So this chapter, actually, there is not even the chapter. We are in the item 50. So right now we are going to be talking about the providential aim of a spirit manifestation. So spirit manifestation, that's what we were talking about. When the spirits, they come and they communicate with the incarnated. So Mark, could you read for us the yellow portions, and then Teresa, myself, I will stop a little bit and we can make comments just for us to have a better understanding. And everybody, I marked yellow sentences, so sometimes don't make like fully understanding, but hopefully I'm trying to summarize so we can make it a little faster.
The providential aim of spirit manifestations is to convince disbelievers that all does not end for human beings when their life on earth ends. Good spirits come to instruct us for our improvement and our progress, but not what we must learn solely by our own efforts. Spirits help persons of genius through inspiration, but in order to leave the merit to them, they do not exempt them from having to do work or research.
So, summarizing quickly, the good spirits, they inspire us, but we need to make our own effort. They are not going to give us. We have to work to have this improvement. Go ahead.
Serious spirits refuse to concern themselves with useless matters. The first regrettable consequence for persons who divert their faculty from its providential aim is to be fooled by the deceitful spirits. The second is to fall under the control of these same spirits. The third is to lose after death the benefit of having known Spiritism. Manifestations lie in their moral consequences. However, if they led to physically demonstrate the existence of the soul and its survival after death, because it would open up a broad new way to philosophy.
So, Mark, Teresa, would you like to talk a little bit about these two last items?
Sure. So I think these spirit manifestations are to help us to progress morally. We're told that what obstacles to our moral progress is pride and selfishness, so they're helping us to raise our morality. And it's not about material, so about make me rich and what's the lottery numbers and the mediumship book tells us that we shouldn't be not to ask rhetorical questions, that things we already know, or to test their knowledge, because the elevated spirits are serious and they're here to help, not to play games. They talk about when we're going to ask questions, we should prepare ahead of time and consider simple questions and the content. So we're not, they're not rambling on, confusing, and very simple and to the point. The most important thing that I thought I learned from this was that spirits are not, that we don't need to know the future. Like, tell me, my future. If we analyze our present, we can understand what our future is. So we don't need to get caught up in, am I going to be rich? Am I going to be, powerful? What, from this material standpoint, but to look at how am I living my life, and we can pretty much understand, where that energy is going.
Exactly. Nowadays, in the time of Kardec, was very important to talk to the spirits, to understand their awakening, to understand the spiritual realm. But Kardec was always very serious. He was never asking silly questions. Mm-hmm. He always asked very important questions that were important to the humanity, not for himself, for example. Mm-hmm. So nowadays, mediumship, to the ones that are not aware of mediumship in spiritism, we do not use mediumship for silly things. We do not invite our grandmother to say how is everything in the other side. But it's pretty much like the medium Chico Xavier in Brazil used to say, the phone rings there, here, meaning the spirits, they come. It's not us inviting them as it was in the time of Kardec. So it's a very different. And so let's finalize talking about a little bit about the concerning medium. So Teresa, could you read those items, and then Mark
Sure.
could do comments in the end.
Okay. So mediums display a wide variety in their aptitudes. Physical effects, intelligent communications, seeing, speaking, hearing, sensitive, drawing, polyglot, poetic, musical, writing, etc. mediums. Physical effect mediums are most particularly capable of inducing material phenomena, such as movements, raps, etc. Ordinary raps, we may receive answers such as yes or no for experimentation. Communication writing is the simplest, frequently found among mediums. Mediums could write directly with the hand. Mediums write under the influence of the spirits. Their hand is caused to write by involuntary movements. Some mediums have no awareness of what they are writing. Others are vaguely aware, although the thought is not their own. This is what distinguishes the mechanical, intuitive, and semi-mechanical mediums. If spirits do not want to manifest, mediums obtain nothing and are like instruments without musicians. It would be erroneous to liken mediumship to a talent. Talents are acquired by work. Physical effect mediums are being used by low-order spirits who enjoy putting on such exhibitions. The darkness required for the production of certain physical effects, of course, arouses suspicion, but in chemistry, there are combinations that cannot occur under light. So intelligent communications, the fluidic action of the spirit upon the medium, the ease depends on the degree of affinity between the two fluids. Mediums may be a good instrument for one, but a bad instrument for another. Spirits prefer to look for instruments who vibrate in unison with them. Without harmony, communications are impossible, incomplete, or false. The fluidic assimilation is at times completely impossible between certain spirits and mediums, at other times established gradually. The medium must identify beforehand with the spirit through concentration and prayer, at least for a few minutes.
And this is the final portion.
The medium's personal qualities truly perform an important role due to the nature of the spirits he or she attracts. Practice of Spiritism from the experimental point of view entails many difficulties.
Very good. So we spoke a lot about the mediumship, and to the ones that don't know anything, these were just little glimpses. So Mark, what could you talk about to summarize everything Teresa was talking about? Like people don't understand anything of mediumship. So what you could give to them to just have an idea?
Most people will understand that the medium is the go-between between the spirit and humans. And so the circumstances are going to be completely unique every single time. The person who is functioning as the medium has a variety of different variables. What is their physical, emotional, spiritual state at that moment? What did they eat? What have they done that day? How clear is their mind? A whole variety of variables for the medium. Similarly, for the spirit, are they obsessive? Are they angry? Are they jovial? Are they lower? Are they higher? What is the nature of the spirit? So every interaction between medium and spirit is unique. Even if the purpose of the meeting is for a general classification, all mediums and all spirits will tell you every interaction is unique, even if it's the same medium they have spoken through, communicated through previously. Some mediums are only skilled at the written word, and others have other abilities as well to actually speak without having to write. So again, it all depends. There are multiple variations, but the important thing is there should be no fear. This is now very well documented by Kardec, as well as multiple times since the 1850s, where a medium and a spirit have been observed, recorded, videotaped, whatever the case may be. And some of them are pretty amazing, almost inhuman if you think about it. A artist or a person who is not an artist with both hands independently drawing two completely different pictures. And across the room, a different person doing exactly the same thing. And when they're both done, these four pieces of art all come together. Only spirits could make that happen.
Mm.
Yes, yeah, it's amazing. Mediumship is amazing, but there are so many intangibles. That's why you have to continue studying with us, because next month we are going to be talking about the dangers of mediumship. That's why it's so important to study, because there are mediums everywhere, in any religion, in any society, in any country. But in Spiritism, we learn how to protect ourselves if you are a medium. In other beliefs or in other situations, people are even fearful of saying they see spirits, because people can think they are kind of crazy and they need to be put in a mental institution, start having some kind of heavy drugs to come back to normal. And in other situations, they understand this is a good way of making money, because they have this ability that nobody has, and they can make money with it. So there are consequences to all kinds of actions. And that's why it's important for us to study what Spiritism guides us, why we don't charge for mediumship, why we don't call spirits, why we have to wait for them to really come, and why we don't do this in our homes. We have to go to a sacred place, that's the Spiritist Center, and there a group of people that have been studying for a long time, they are the ones who actually participate in mediumistic meetings. Anyway, it's subject for many other meetings, and we will continue talking about this. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure having both of you here. And Teresa, could you do our final prayer, please?
Sure.
So we close it. Thank you.
Divine Creator, Blessed Mother, we bring ourselves to the close of this study with much gratitude, a better awareness of Spiritism, a better understanding of the passage, the transition from life to death. And we are grateful for this knowledge. We allow ourselves to sit with this information, let it wash over us, to come to a better understanding and practical use of how can we put this into our lives in assimilating the Spiritist doctrine and putting it into practice. And with elevated thoughts, grateful hearts, and much contentment, we humbly ask permission to close this study session, and so be it.
And so it is.
My friends, thank you so much. It was a blessing having both of you here. And thank you to all of you that participated, that listened, and all of you that will listen it later on. I hope you can come back again next month so we can continue. And to the ones who live in Miami, would like to join us at our center, miainnerlight. We are in Coral Way in the south area of Miami. If you are not physically here, but you would like to join us online, send us a message. I can send you a link, and you can join us on Tuesdays from 7 to 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Mwah! Thank you. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye.